Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas, Tetzaveh, Zayin Oder, Yemei Ledes, the Yemei Lulas, Talkos of Moshe Rabbeinu, and we have to understand the connection between all these inyanim, and it's also Parshas Zocher. So as usual, since the war started, we had tzedakah. We're giving tzedakah, gdelet tzedakah, shemakareves sagula, Mashiach now. We're also going to say a pasuk from davening, which is connected to today's Zayin Oder, and the impact of Moshe Rabbeinu till this very day. In general, we say Torah tziva lonu Moshe meirasha kilas Yaakov. The first pasuk that every child knows is that the Torah which is commanded to us from Moshe is the one that we keep and we adhere to, and we always call it Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. We also say Zichru Teiras Moshe Avdi, and we also say every day in Oz Yosher Moshe Uvnei Yisrael Ashira Azois Lashem V'Yemru Leimer Ashira Lashem Ki Goy Goy Susvarech Ve'Ram V'Yom. So we see the impact of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he still influences till this very day, every single time we learn Torah. And also we have the pasuk that right precedes Oz Yosher, which is Vayar Yisrael es Yoda Gdela Asher Osa Hashem b'Mitzrayim Vayiro Mes Hashem Vayaminu b'Hashem Uva Moshe Avdi. Now, in this week's Parsha, which is an interesting point to bring out, we speak about the mitzvah straight away in Parshas Tetzaveh. Parshas Tetzaveh, by the way, first we have Parshas Truma, which speaks about the utensils that we use in the Mishkan. Like, it speaks about the shulchan, the table, we spoke about that last week. There's the menorah, how we made the menorah, and there was the mizbeach. So in this week's Parsha, we speak about the people that serve in the Mishkan, the Kohanim. And it speaks about Big Day Kohuna, what they're meant to wear, the clothes that they wear. But one of the main jobs of the Kohanim is to kindle the menorah. This menorah that we discussed on last week's Parsha, how it was made, in this week's Parsha, it discusses the mitzvah of kindling the menorah. The first pasuk speaks about Va'ata Tetzaveh b'nei Yisrael. Hashem tells Moshe, you shall command the Yidden, V'yichlo elecha shemen zayizach, and they will obtain for you clear olive oil, kosis lamoyer, pressed for lighting, lalis ner tomid, to light up the lamp regularly. So what's unusual is that even though this is a mitzvah for the Kohanim, it starts with Hashem telling Moshe, Ve'ata Tetzaveh, V'yichlo elecha, and they bring to him this shemen zayizach, this pressed oil. And the next pasuk says, "Ba'oyel moed mechutz lapareches asher aloidus yarechu say Aaron uvonov me'erev ad boiker. Aaron or his sons shall set up the lamp in the tent of meeting outside the partition that is next to the ark of the testimony, so that it burns from evening until morning." So here we have the mitzvah of kindling the menorah. So what we're going to discuss today is a phenomenal letter of the Rebbe that was written in 1947, and it's printed in Likutei Sichos, Chelik Yud, page 293. See there, it's such a phenomenal letter, because I believe if you follow this letter, it's the manual exactly of what the Rebbe wants from every single Yid. How to be an influencer successfully. And it talks about a certain paradox which is so phenomenal, so astonishing. The concept of, and I believe the Rebbe was the one who spoke about this concept more than any other Jewish leader, on the one hand humility, but on the other hand being a powerful, solid person, leadership qualities. And this is the paradigm which I believe begins from Moshe Rabbeinu. So let's get straight to the issue of the letter. This was a letter that the Rebbe wrote in Chav Kislev, Tavshin Ches, And it talks about why is it that Chanukah, the main miracle, is the miracle of the oil. This is a famous discussion about how there was the miracles of victory in war. That's one miracle, one set of miracles, the military victory in Chanukah. And then there was the miracle connected to the oil, that the small flask of oil that was there for one day lasted for 8 days. So the question is, why Chanukah, we make such a big deal about this miracle of the oil? And here the Rebbe writes a letter speaking about the paradoxical qualities and characteristics of oil, and how this is a lesson to every single person. And the message is, be like oil. Every Jew has to be like oil that has these two paradoxical characteristics, and that is what every single Jew is supposed to reflect in the service of Hashem. So the Rebbe writes, and I'm going to read some of the words from the inside, but we'll discuss it outside. Matzinu b'shemen tchunos havchos. We find concerning oil two paradoxical characteristics. Number one, nasa yidei k'tisha ubitush dafka. As the pasuk says in the beginning, in the first pasuk of Tetzaveh, kosis lamoyer. How do we get to oil? We squeeze the olive. We crush the olive. We have to press the olive. And that shows an anova, humility. Also, olive is mefafea b'chol dover. It penetrates everything. It reaches everything. It connects with everything. Those are the two characteristics on one side that are, each one is totally zebazeh. Because it has humility, therefore it relates and connects with everything. And it connects on the deepest level. Mefafeh b'chol davar means it saturates everything. Like when your fingers come in contact with oil, they become oily. If you get an oil stain, it's the hardest to cleanse, to clean. Then, the Rebbe says, on the other hand, oil does not mix and mingle with other liquids. When you put oil into a barrel of other liquids, it doesn't become one, it doesn't merge, it doesn't unite with the other liquids, it remains apart. It shows on a separation, an exaltedness. Before, when the Rebbe said mefafeh b'chol davar, it penetrates everything, it says mashamoyr al kiruv l'chol davar. It shows how it's close to everything. And then he says not only that it's not mixed, doesn't mix with the other liquid, but oilo l'mayla mikol mashkin. It remains above it. So this is the point. Listen closely, my friends. This is the point of every single Jew, who the Rebbe in general viewed himself as a shliach of Hashem, obviously, and a shliach of his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe. Here we have the shliach paradigm. And what does it mean to be a true service of Hashem, and to be able to go into any environment and to any surroundings and still not get influenced and impacted by his surroundings, but on the contrary, have an influence on the surroundings. You are the mashbiah, you are the light. You bring light to every single environment, any environment, even a hostile environment. And yet, the net result of it is not only you didn't become lower, but on the contrary, you still rise above it all. You remain true to who you are, and even more so, this brings you to higher levels. So, let's start with the first thing, kosis. How does oil come about? You have to crush it. You have to squeeze it. This is something we've spoken about many times. I think humility is the most underrated virtue. And no matter how much we discuss it, it's not enough. And over here, the Rebbe is saying a tremendous thought that we see in life. The person who's really powerful from within and humble, that's what it means, humble, that you don't have some inferiority complex, and that's why you're humble. No, you're humble because you realize there's something greater than yourself. You're involved in a greater cause. You're connected to a supreme being. So in Avodas Hashem, the Rebbe connects the humility, the anivus, with Kabbalas Oil Malchus Shamayim. There's a King of Kings. There's a King of Kings, and you were created to serve Him. And that's why you have this humility, because you're constantly in the presence of the super infinity, of the ultimate infinity. Kol HaKorav Yoser Kala, because Kula Kamek Kala Chashav, because you're in the presence of infinity, therefore you're humble. So it's not coming out of a weakness. It's not coming out of an inferiority complex. It's coming out of, because you're one with infinity. So therefore you're completely humble, but you're really humble. And there's many aspects to that humility. You don't give credit to yourself. You don't think you're something special. And because you're humble, therefore you're amazing at the go along to get along. But again, not because you don't have virtues, not because you don't stand for certain principles, but because when you see another person, because you're humble, you respect that person. You connect with him at the deepest level because he feels that you recognize him and you accept him because you see his qualities, whoever he is. So therefore these two things go together. Because you are kosses, because you are humble, you are oppressed. So therefore, Lamar, you could illuminate everything and everything. You mafafeh b'kuloi. There's nothing that you cannot reach. There's nothing that you cannot connect with. There's nothing that you cannot saturate. We spoke this once before concerning Pesach, where we say, the Rebbe has a mighty kavod, that at the beginning of the Seder we say, Kol dichve yesev yechol, my house is open door policy, we're ready to accept everyone. And the Rebbe says a word, why does the Seder start with that statement? And the Rebbe says, because that's the measure of a free man. Are you taka a free man? Are you a ben chayrin? What does it mean to be a free man? You're not a blue state, you're not a red state. You're the United States. A free person could go out of his, whatever his political party is, whatever his disposition is, whatever his temperament is, and it's open door policy, he could sit at the same table with every single person. Why? Because since, like we said over here, it's kosses, because it's humble, anivus, so therefore it's mafeh feya b'chol dover. There's nothing which he looks at that's lower or worse or outside his sphere of influence, because he's the opposite. I'm not opposite any of the Jew. Doesn't mean I have to agree with everything he says, but I can respect him totally. And we could always sit at the same table. So that's how the two things go together, the humility and being able to connect with every single person. But at the same time comes the other paradoxical aspect, which is the leadership quality, that even though a person could relate and connect with every single other person and accepts them, nevertheless, he remains true to himself. He's connected to a higher source. He's connected to Shulchan Aruch. He's connected to Torah. There's Torah values. As the Rebbe spoke many times on the Mishnah, U'mekarvon la Torah. We have to always remember that we can't dilute the truth. We accept everyone, and we speak to everyone, and we're nice to everyone, and we have Ahavas Yisrael, mefafeh b'chol davar. We reach every single Jew, and there's no Jew which is left out and not invited to my table. But nevertheless, I have to remain true to my principles, and to, as we come to the next point, which even though we penetrate everything and saturate everything, but it's einem is out of him shar mashkin. If I'm on shlichus somewhere in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Las Vegas, Australia, it doesn't mean that I become like everyone else over there, but I'm there on a mission. My mission is to kindle the menorah and bring light over there, but yet remain above it. Be a part of it, yet apart. That's the whole idea. And not only that, the ultimate is that not only do we not mix where we're ever going, but we rise above it. And that means that when you help another Jew, when you're involved in shlichus, when you're working for a greater cause, ultimately you have to realize that the Rebbe said many times that you become elevated yourself. And we see that all people that are oisik b'tzarchei tzibur, and they're involved in working for a community, in communal work, and this is today agreed by all psychologists. If you want your happiness, if you really want to be happy, get involved in a cause that's greater than yourself, and that will bring you the greatest happiness, and that's how you continue to rise. And because you look at yourself as somebody who your standard is not getting lower, therefore you don't set your standard based upon everyone else. Imagine you have a Rosh Hashiva. He's a super genius. He learns with students. He learns with them the Talmud. But he constantly tells himself and he challenges himself, you know what, I'm going to try to say today something new that my students never heard before. Try not to repeat. And he's always working on himself, trying not to repeat, because he himself wants to find new ideas, new challenges. He's constantly challenging himself to rise to greater heights. And that's what it means, that through working with others, you yourself become elevated. But it starts with, you're not measuring yourself according to any other standards, but you're measuring yourself according to what the Eibishter wants from you, what the Rebbe wants from you, etc. This is also connected to another concept, which is going to be in next week's Parsha, that Moshe Rabbeinu says, and he asks of Hashem, that we should have something called V'niflinu. That means the Jewish nation is distinguished. And on a personal level, I'm saying every single chassid, every single Jew has to look at himself and always ask himself, there's a Tom, Dick, and Harry, there's a Gentile, and then there's a Jew, B'no Yechidah Shel Melech Malchem Lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem chose us. V'atam Tili Mamlechas Kohanim V'goy Kodesh. So the question is, what is my standard? Is my standard commensurate with royalty or not? Are we like Kohanim? We're a nation of Amlechas Kohanim V'goy Kodesh. And this is the message over here, what the Rebbe is saying about be like oil. Exactly as we described today. And the beauty of this is so awesome that we have this humility on the one hand, total humility, kosis, lemoyer, Kabbalah soil. But at the end, once you have real Kabbalah soil, Eved Melech Melech, the subject of the king becomes like the king. And in a way, again, it's so beautiful and something we can elaborate how it's all over in Chassidus. This year, in the Maimor of Basir Lagani, there was a concept that the Oirin Soif, Hashem's infinity, is Lamayla Mayla Adin Ketz or Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis, which means it's above, above, and beyond, and it goes down, down, down to the lowest level. So people didn't discuss this aspect of it, but I'm going to repeat you a word which is printed in a Sicha of the Friediger Rebbe. It's a Sicha of Shvi Shel Pesach Tov Reish Tzadik Vov. In the new print it's page 146. In the old print it was page 135. And it says there as follows. Listen, my friends. Rabbeinu Azakan Omar Pam, the Alter Rebbe once said, when the Rebbe Gevot Metzai Zayin, when the Rebbe, the Mezucha Magid, wanted to describe the Reimemus from Zayden, the exaltedness of my grandfather, he called the Baal Shem Tov his grandfather. The Magid, the Mezucha Magid, said it as follows, described it as follows. Ki Reimemus HaMelech Adir, imagine the greatest exaltedness and glory of a powerful, powerful king. Who kilo negadim Reimemus from the Rebbe. That's like nothing compared to the exaltedness of the Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov. Whereas the Geret wegen den Bittel from the Baal Shem Tov, when he spoke about the humility of the Baal Shem Tov, he said, Ki ish oni meduke, hashofel v'nivze b'yoyser b'einei atzmai. If you could imagine the poorest person who's completely crushed and feels like nothing in his own eyes, this doesn't compare to the sense of nothingness and self-nullification of the Baal Shem Tov, his humility. And when the Alter Rebbe used to repeat this, he would say, Hertiden, listen to this, Jews. Was the Rebbe gesagt, what my master, the Maggid, said, Das ist der Inyan, euren Seufel, Meila, Meila, Adin Ketz, This is what it means that we speak about the Inferior of Hashem, that it's above and beyond, above and beyond, to no end, and down below, to no end. And then the Alter Rebbe sich verkeikelt and dweikes mameruba. And then the Alter Rebbe would get lost in a trance and for a long time. This is what Pinchas Rezer said. So this is really the story of Judaism in Avodas Hashem, the story of leadership. And there's a famous saying, I forgot which Rabbi said, that he always kept two pieces of paper, two slips of paper. In one pocket he had a slip of paper which said, V'anechi ofa ve'efer, and I am nothing, I am but dust and ashes. And the other pocket he had a slip of paper that said, B'shvili nivra elam, for me the world was created. So this is what it means, to be a true leader, you must have humility. And to be successful, you must have humility. So it's leadership, but permeated with a sense of public service. You're in public office. You're working for the public. It's about them. And then you go from level to level and you have the right shtel, the right solidity. And this we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. The same thing, the first leader, number one, concerning Moshe Rabbeinu. It says, "V'ish Moshe ya'onav mikol adam asher pnei adama." I don't want to elaborate, but the verse itself, in the Torah itself, says that Moshe was, "V'ish Moshe ya'onav mikol adam asher pnei adama." It says about Moshe Rabbeinu that he was the most humble of all people. So here we have the paradigm of Jewish leadership. To be the truest leader, you must be the most humble. And that's the measure of greatness. My friends, if we speak about any great person, the first question you have to ask is he humble? And if he's not humble, he is not a great person. And he's not a great leader. Sorry. And we see this from the Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu v'ish Moshe haya'onav mikol adam asher pnei adama. But at the same time, when you learn the Torah and you learn all the stories of Moshe Rabbeinu, we see that we're not dealing with some meek, mild pacifist. We're speaking about a leader, a warrior, a fighter, and so on and so forth, constantly with Paroi. And in this week's Parshas Zocher, the same thing with Amalek. He's the one that chooses the Anshe Moshe, and he leads his people with his hands in the sky, towards the sky, connecting, the conduit that connects with the Eibishter. And this is what we have to think about in Zayin Oder, that we have to be connected to the Moshe who has both the perfect balance of the Reimamus and the Kiruv, the perfect balance of the exaltedness and the closeness at the same time. We have to go on Moshe Rabbeinu's ways. When we connect ourselves to Moshe Rabbeinu, then we have also these two paradoxical temperaments, that we're completely humble, but at the same time we're completely powerful, because Eved Melech, Moshe Rabbeinu is a Melech. So the Eibishter should help that we should go on the drachim of Moshe Rabbeinu, and then we'll be able to eradicate every single Amalek, the Amalek from within, which causes all sorts of problems, that we have doubts, and it cools down the passion and tells us don't get excited about Yiddishkeit, don't get excited about a mitzvah. So with the power of being connected to Moshe Rabbeinu, we can deal with our inner Amalek, and will also help us deal with the physical Amaleks that exist in these times, to bring us to a complete victory. Am Yisrael Chai, and it should be Didan Notzach, Begula Amitis Vashlema, take it from Yad Mamish. And this is what the mitzvah of kindling the menorah is, and why it's so important to have this concept of oil, that once every single one of us will be like oil, then the success in whatever we're trying to accomplish will be to no end. Good Shabbos, posting from the Rebbe Shchuna. Good Shabbos.